Hey, my favorite time of the day, seeing you. And I'm so glad I found you. I told you I had a dream about you. I couldn't find you. And I'm so glad to see you doing so well.
I know, and I'm glad you found me. You told me that there were two of me, and
There's
with the
two of
life
you.
I'm living right now, I need two of me.
Yeah, one looked really good in a white suit, one was in a black suit. So I think this is going to be, we're talking about No Kings and the Road to Revolution. I was thinking about what we should dance in today. So we put
Yeah,
together a
yes,
great
yes, yes,
show with a
yes,
little fun, ribbit, ribbit. So what have you
yeah,
talked about the song?
yes. So we're actually dancing into Monrovia, and the song is Heavyfoot, and it is about the government's overreach. Now, the end of the song actually says that the government fails, but what we know is the No Kings protest is how we make sure the government fails. The people have to stand up. So we need to make sure that they fail. So you guys dance into Monrovia and get your dancing shoes on and get ready.
Yeah, clarify that Trump administration. Go ahead.
Oh, Trump administration, Trump
Yeah.
Virginia.
Congress to step up and demand oversight.
To demand oversight on federal law enforcement? Well, I've not seen them cross the line yet, and that we have committees of jurisdiction who have that responsibility, but it's not risen to that level. What I've seen is the abuse of law enforcement by radical leftist activists. Most recently, the most threatening thing I've seen yet was the naked bicyclers in Portland who were protesting ICE down there. I mean, it's getting really ugly.
We're gonna go have a great time together. And always remember, don't let the government vilify you. We know that we're not the violent
United! We'll never be defeated!
Do you hear the sound of a bell? Did you wish your family well? Times ain't the same in the neighborhood. Got the parents all going through hell, 'cause the guns keep flying off the shelf. Do you see the man on the street, just fighting for a meal to eat? You can write him off as a lunatic, but it could have been you or me if we didn't ever find our feet. No, they're never gonna keep us all down.
Oh my gosh, heavy foot. It's good for
I
the
know.
road to revolution. We got to have that heavy foot on the pedal to the metal, right? Just hold it down.
Yeah, it sort of made me want to cry because it's really so hopeful, and it just goes to show again and again how music really is an antidote that's needed for the times that we're in, and it's why it's always been used to help people stay motivated and connected to what's really important. So I love
Yeah. Well, I wanted to get out that naked bike ride. It was so dangerous. All those butts on the bikes. I mean, I think that was the most dangerous, threatening part of it is what if anybody has ridden a bike, thinking about
yeah.
the naked bike ride. But I love that one thing that I'm so excited that Simon Rosenberg is here. I haven't seen him in a bit, but I do watch and listen to him on Hopium. Great to see him in the room. Michael O'Connor's here from Dogwood. It's just a great guest lineup. Of course, Lynlee, Micaela Pond. Luisa just got in the room, so great to hear from everybody. We're talking about this road to revolution. It has to be joyful, and we keep saying it. I hate to be redundant, but humor is working.
Yeah.
It helps us.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. So I won't say much more because I can't wait to have my chance to talk to both Lynlee and Michael O'Connor today. I think that they are so right for the moment that we're in. So,
Yeah,
what
you
do you
want to,
think?
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know. So we have a couple minutes to chat. So I was thinking on your corner of the woods and sense of getting ready for the election. With everything going on, how are you feeling about Virginia? I'm putting
Well,
you on the spot.
I know, right? Well, one of the things that I'm going to be really excited to talk to Michael about is the debate. If anybody watched the debate
Hey,
last
who
night.
watched the debate?
Yeah,
Tell
so
us in the chat.
who watched
Yeah.
the debate? So I think that's going to be something important to talk about. I think the No Kings is really important. On the Eastern Shore, on the little baby Eastern Shore, we're having No Kings. And interestingly enough, when I popped the TV on
Right.
last night, they were talking about the debate, about the No Kings. And I think what's important is, the Republicans are trying to make it into some big ugly thing, but it's not. And I think that everybody here understands what that means. And I can't wait to hear what Micaela has to say about that too. So those are the things that's on my mind. I'll tell you the final thing that was on my mind, and that was the Supreme Court and their decision to decide whether or not they're going to allow Republicans to do some kind of gerrymandering and take out a portion of the Voting Rights Act that would give Republicans more congressional seats. So that really had me worried. And so I'm
Yeah.
anxious to see how that turns out.
I think I'm glad you brought that up because I don't know, we won't have a chance to cover everything today because I'm watching, I mean, the mafia, this is a mafia boss kind of administration. This is how they act, right? The deal making, the pressure, and they're always looking for pressure points where they can see if they can intimidate. Look at James Comey. They're trying to threaten and scare, and they try to see where they can go. And what we've learned right away is our favorite line on our great t-shirts: do not obey in advance, right? People are learning this really important word, and it's no.
Mm-hmm.
And when you say no, and you have other friends behind you, we're seeing that a lot. The biggest problem we have is the Supreme Court is really, I think, the biggest kingmaker, and which is really I think the most disappointing, those 6 justices up there. But Ketanji Jackson is really amazing to watch her in that. I saw her debate that, in front of the Supreme Court. But the idea that Roberts would be the one to go further with the Voting Rights Act, the most important, anti-Jim Crow piece of constitutional legislation will work, and here they are gutting it. And why? Because they fear the vote, and this is the way they have to do it because they're not popular, and this is the only way they can take power is try to take it from the people. So as I'll say, I'll end up with this: it's up to us, as we've said over and over.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, Catherine. And I think finally, and I'm going to talk about this later with Michael, but when
Yeah,
I think about the color of abolition and Linda Hersham and the final things that she said, one was to get control of the Supreme Court. And she said that will be the hardest thing to do. And we're finding that we're in the place that we are is because of the Supreme Court.
right.
And I also would say it really is important for us to talk to America about the Supreme Court, that it really shouldn't be this
Right.
6-3 court right now. It should really be a 5-4 or something, and why and how it got there. And I think that we do a disservice often when we think that and assume that people understand. And we need every single American, every single one, to understand why this Supreme Court is there and how it got there.
Yeah, and my last comment will be, it teaches us, I think, how we have to stand up and fight. And I think it's a new world, a new day. And the idea, again, even when we're talking about Virginia, the idea that you're clutching your pearls, maybe thinking, oh, I can't vote for Jay Jones, or I can't vote for Democrats, or all this. Right now, we're fighting for our lives. And I think there's such a, we saw how people didn't vote for Hillary. They didn't vote for Kamala Harris. They didn't fight hard enough for the Supreme Court, wouldn't expand the Supreme Court. Now we have to know, we have to really realize we're fighting to really survive as a country. So with that, I'm going to open the show. What do you say? You ready to go with me on the road? Get in my car, girl. We're going down the road. Welcome, everybody. I'm your host, Catherine White, your other host, Fennell Norton, here today. We're so excited to have you in the room. It's October 17th. You're on Network Novas Live. Really ambitious podcast to spread the grassroots message all across the nation. We're so happy to have you in the room. Let us know, again, what you're doing for No Kings. It's kind of getting us all really happy. And our favorite part is the after chat, 1 o'clock. We turn things down. Stick around for that. Some of our guests may be able to, but anyways, it's a great time to hear from you. The rules of the road: drive fast. Drive it like you own it. But if you're in the chat, you talk naughty, too naughty, we'll kick your butt out. No problem there. And for those of you that support the show and your patrons, we love you. Thank you. And we hope to get some more in our cup today. This is how we keep the lights on here. So we really appreciate your support. Thank you so much. And let's reminder that today we are No Kings, the Road to Revolution. We have some great guest lineup today. Simon Rosenberg, Hopium Chronicles is up there. Journalist Michael O'Connor of Dogwood News is here. We're going to have our grassroots leader, Luisa Boyarski, back with us, talking all about Virginia. Lynlee, Thorne, Rural GroundGame, the goats here. And Micaela Pond of We Have Action and she's just going to tell us about No Kings and get us pumped up, right? Because we're going to take it back, fix it. We're going to organize, and we're going to win. So we're so excited. Did I miss anybody? I think we got it all. So let's see. Is Luisa in the room? Let's call her up.
I am here. It's so good to see everybody.
pop her in and let's say you just got out of class, teacher.
We are busy here at the university, but really excited to talk to you guys about ways to get involved. We've only got a little over 2 weeks left before
I know.
election day, and we need help getting out the vote, right?
I'm going to let you take it. I'm going to pop out. You look great, by the way, and let's get on the road to revolution with Luisa. And look at that magic. Go ahead.
All right, everyone. So as we know, we have more Democratic voters in Virginia than we have Republicans, but we need to make sure they vote, right? So step one, commit to getting at least 5 people to the polls and make sure folks are checking their voter registration. Voter registration, or like the regular plan, which is what we want everyone to do, ends on October 24th. So please remind people, check their registration. They can do it on iwillvote.com, where they can also figure out where they can vote early. We need your help with canvases. Getting on the doors and helping people know who is on the ballot makes a difference. So we have a grassroots canvass coming up for John McAuliffe on the 19th. I will put the link in the chat, and one for Andrew Payton coming up on October 25th. Also, I will put that in the chat. Join our grassroots groups. It's more fun when we do it together. And I know that there are others being planned. So if anybody else has a canvas they want to share, please put that in the chat as well. If you're not ready to canvass or you want to do something in addition to canvassing, please get on the phones. The more we can talk to voters, the better chance we have of getting their votes in. So we have a phone bank for Stacey Carroll on October 20th, a phone bank with Rural GroundGame on the 22nd, and another phone bank coming up on the 27th with a TBD candidate. These are all auto dialers. So for those of you who are like, oh, I'm really tired of having to type in those phone numbers, these ones will make it really easy and make sure that we're using everyone's time effectively and efficiently. And then on October 19th, there's a nonpartisan voter information session that is coming up in Northern Virginia. And I will put the link in the chat. The Unitarian Universalist Church of Arlington and the Northern Virginia Jewish Reconstructionist community are partnering on this. I think it's a great opportunity to figure out how you can get involved, even if you are saying, I don't want to be in a partisan perspective, but I want to make sure people are exercising their right to vote. So I will put that in the chat as well. So that was step one, right? Make sure people are voting. Next step is make sure the votes count, right? So please sign up to be a poll observer. We have a really fantastic training coming up with guest speaker Eric Holder on October 23rd. Also, if you haven't already decided when and if and where you're going to be handing out sample ballots, we have opportunities to do that in Stafford for Carroll and Cole. I will put in the links for early voting sample ballots and election day sample ballots. And then, of course, every year we have to cure ballots because not every ballot comes in properly filled out, particularly if it's done through the mail. We're already working on cure phone banks, so I will put the link in the chat. Particularly if you're out of the state, these are great ways to help make sure votes count in Virginia. And then the last thing I want to highlight is let's help get the record straight. There's some really good op-eds and social media graphics that can help you inform people on social media about what's happening in the attorney general race, what you need to know in the governor's race, who's running, and what do they stand for. So I'm going to put some links in the chat to some of those materials. If you, at the very least, please help us make sure that people know who the options are for sure at the top of the ticket, so that they aren't going in, as we were talking about, and trying to split that vote. We want people to be voting for Democrats across the board, and they deserve it. They have the values that we care about, and they care about the policies that are really going to help Virginians today be safer and stronger, and hopefully in the future continue to thrive. So the last thing is, if you want to join us for an upcoming Virginia Grassroots Coalition meeting, we have our elections working group meeting this coming Wednesday at 4 p.m. I'll put that info in the chat, and then our coalition meeting will be on Sunday, October 26th, so we can do some final strategy starting at 6 p.m., and I will share that with you as well. So lots of ways to get involved, and please, pick a couple of things that you can commit to, but also share them with your friends, others in the community. I know people like to ask, like, oh, well, how do you think the elections are going? I think the answer is the elections are going if we're going to be talking to voters and getting them out to vote. So how are you going to step up, right? This is that time. This is the year for Virginia. Let's make sure that we are coming out and showing the country the direction that we want this country to go in.
Yeah, I agree. And well said. I'll have to say, I went to the old church where we used to meet in the basement, Louisa, for the Grassroots Coalition. So if you're in the room, do join. Great groups because we have issue working groups. We know that after this election, we don't stop. We go right to issue advocacy because why do we do this work? We do it because we care about policy. We have to go down and make sure that if this is what we do and we care about, we get things, legislation passed that helps like people's lives better. So thank you for that. Thank you for all your work and great to be here. So
Thank you for
exciting.
having
Yeah.
me as always.
Well, goodness. Yeah, I'm so excited. We do got to get people out and excited and focused on the election. No Kings is Saturday. So I'm sure all the campaigns are complaining that people aren't knocking. So
Well, we have most of the knocking for this weekend is on Sunday, right?
yeah,
And that is good because this is going to get people, hopefully,
yeah,
the
focused
doors
on.
and remind them that they still have opportunities to vote early.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think that I'm glad the party is going with it. The best way is to roll with the people. So thank you, Louisa. And
Absolutely.
I'm so excited for our next guest because he's a friend, Simon Rosenberg. He's been with us now for several years, a supporter of the grassroots, a founder of Hopium Chronicles, and just a veteran policy analyst and strategist. And you just created a new life for yourself. How are you doing in the new shoes, heavy foot?
Listen, I think I'm where everybody is, right? Which is that I'm both, down about the damage that Trump is doing to the country and motivated to work hard, and also excited about the progress I think we're making in our movement, about the success we've had in elections this year, about the sense of this growing circle of defiance that you're seeing against Trump, and excited about No Kings tomorrow. So I think like all of us, I live in this dual place, right? Which is that I'm deeply aware of the damage that he's doing to the country and all of us. Use that to motivate me to go do the work that I do, and I feel like we are making legitimate progress.
I agree with you, and it's such a growth and evolution. And we talked about we're waiting for certain leaders. Now we know we are the leaders. I'm also kind of excited when I see we're in 2026 looking down the pike, and we could talk about that a little later if we want to. Like I see our party also growing and new leaders rising, and I think that's kind of exciting in this moment because I think that's what we wanted to see. So I think that's always important to do two things. We have to fight what's going on, and we have to make sure that we're ready for the midterms and we're growing that leadership and we have a strong infrastructure and our party is responding. So with that, I know that you came here probably prepared with some ideas that maybe I know you well enough. I've been following your latest, that one article, War, Decline, and Dysfunction and Ridicule at Home.
Yeah.
I like to talk about that first because I think when we talk about fighting authoritarianism in your perspective, are we doing it right? How are you assessing it to this point?
Well, I think the most important thing about our movement is that it's decentralized and that it's evolving and growing, which is, that Americans don't have a lot of experience with this. And I think many of us can't really even believe that we're in this place that we are and this sort of existential fight that we're in. And I do think that even though we may have collectively gotten off to a slow start at the beginning of this year, I think there's a lot more momentum and a lot of innovation. I mean, just even the naked bike ride, right? Like these things that are happening you're starting to see greater ambition and innovation happening in our opposition to Trump and to authoritarianism. And I think that what's important is that because of the decentralized nature of the country and that we're so large and our system is so disparate, we are seeing innovation that people then are borrowing from. I mean, the inflatable costumes are incredible because I do think that what's happened in the last few weeks, and it really began with Jimmy Kimmel to a certain degree and his triumph over Trump and the triumph of the late night comedians over their authoritarianism, is that ridicule has emerged as a really powerful tool. And it's very possible that it only could have happened once there was a big enough group of people around the country to sort of be like what the fuck, this has become ridiculous, this guy, because we can't lose in our worry about him and in our work, we can't lose sight of how fundamentally ridiculous all of this is and what a buffoon he and his Pete Hegseth and all these guys really are. And I think it's critical that we maintain that sort of sense of like, you got to be kidding me about what they're doing, and convey that. And I think that one of the reasons, my long answer to your short question is that one of the reasons that I think we are where we are is that Trump's approval rating has come down so far across the board. He's become very distant from people. And I think there are just more kind of, conversations that are people that are having in the hallway or at dinner or when they're commuting with friends and colleagues who are like, yeah, this Trump thing is like not what I thought it was going to be. It's just, and I think that sense of validation with now a clear majority of the country rejecting him on all fronts across all, and his numbers plummeting so much, that it's creating more comfort and space for people to dive in and to become part of the opposition. And that's why I do think we have to think of this as a virtuous cycle, right? That the more people that are involved, the more people see people at No Kings and voting in large numbers, the more it encourages others to join us in this fight. So I think this evolution in the last few weeks of the primary of ridicule becoming a powerful tool is an essential evolution in our movement, and one that I think is going to become, central to how we operate. What are they going to do? Are they going to start arresting the frogs? Right? Like,
Yeah,
I mean, just
maybe.
imagine that. Yeah, right.
I hope they get worse. But I'll say that one thing, Ezra, I was listening to Ezra on a couple shows. You saw him probably doing the circuit. And he said, first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, and then they fight you. So we're in the fight stage. The GOP is out there ripping the resistance. They're trying to say it's a hateful protest. And it's really the optics, the optics aren't going to be there for them unless, of course, they show their propaganda from different countries and say it's Portland or whatever. So I think that what I love, Simon, is people are getting the message in the movement. And I'll also give the kudos to the grassroots movement around this, because if you think all the way back in June, right, when everybody was looking around, even our leadership were kind of stunned by the assault that was so just really looking for every door to get in and break things down, that it really came from the people. And truly, when we look at history and we say, well, it comes from the people, well, shoot, it really did come from the people. And this infrastructure has been there. You've been part of it the last couple of years. You realized that the shift was happening even in the party. So, I mean, it's really amazing how it's grown. And so I just want to make sure we see that. And then what I'm interested in is your thought is why they're so scared. What we see now, I mean, is it, we talk about the Epstein files. We talk about what they're doing in the Justice Department. We see what's happening at the Pentagon all over, right? But really, they're really sort of on the run. And so
Yeah.
what should we do in response to that? What I mean is there is a danger there. They are arresting people. They are using Scott Bessent to go after financial stuff. So this is an interesting road we're on. So what are your thoughts on all of that?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And I think it is critical to understand that they are scared. Right. They would only be doing these radical redistricting efforts and the sort of the attacks on us verbally, and that will eventually become material. It's already happening to people all around the country. We have to be careful to not look at the people that are being arrested and detained by ICE as immigrants or people they're others. They're not. They're just people. And so there are people all across the United States are being terrorized and their lives are being uprooted without due process all across the country. There's the step for that to then move to a larger cohort is very easy, particularly if ICE gets triple the funding next year in the budget at the end of the year. So I do think that there is this, as Trump tries to claim that he's for peace abroad, they are declaring war against us at home. And we have to recognize, I use at Hopium this quote from Robert Frost that the best way out is always through. I just think we have to sort of recognize that this is going to be a 5 to 10 year fight to restore our democracy. And we might as well just get on with it because it's all coming. And delaying it and to pretend that it's all going to kind of snap back in sort of some kind of Pollyannish, hope, right? And it isn't going to happen. We're going to have to confront all of this. And I think we have to start by recognizing that what they continue to exhibit is weakness and fear. They know they're losing. And I think central to this is they know Donald Trump's powers are ebbing. He's
Right.
old, he's ailing physically, he's in clear cognitive decline. The country has really turned on him. He isn't in a majority place on any major issue with the exception of border security. He can't even rally his own supporters behind major parts of his agenda anymore. They are aware that their leader is in decline and ailing and struggling and is becoming more distant to the public. So I think they're legitimately scared about losing power
Right.
and then having us have, it's not just, and about the rule of law returning, because this is what happens in autocracies all around the world, is that the people who've come to power do so in ways that are breaking laws. And so therefore they have to remain in power forever,
Right.
or they go to jail, or their justice comes. And now we recognize that, Donald Trump is killing innocent fishermen in the Caribbean. Stephen Miller is violating all sorts of laws. They're stealing money from the Treasury and doing things like bailing out Argentina without congressional support.
$40 billion.
Yeah. Yeah.
People are paying attention to that, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
People are seeing it. And farmers, let's talk about
Farmers.
and soybeans and the
Yeah.
bullshit that we see happening to real people. And, we'll have
Yeah.
Thorne on later. I can tell you that people are already feeling the Medicaid, the Medicare, the healthcare struggles in Virginia. Hospitals are closing. This is real shit. So the distraction are everywhere, and they do not want to talk about, even in Virginia, in the debates, what's going on in Virginia. They want to talk about their usual chitty chatter,
Right.
So,
And he's still building his ballroom, right?
oh, well, I think they're keeping him busy like a baby. They're saying, hey, we'll build this thing over here and build an arch, But let's talk real quick about a few things. I know we don't have a lot of time together, but the shutdown, if you've heard what your
Yeah.
thoughts are on what our best thing to do there is, and then shifting it a little bit into like what's next about more the party than the grassroots movement in your mind. So what do you think about
So two things. I think that we are in a strong position in all of the November elections, and this still, after No Kings, our main focus now has to go win in November, right? This is the most critical thing. What you're doing, this amazing community all of you have built, we've got to win in Virginia, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, California, and in races all across the country. The good news is that Spanberger and Sherrill have, sturdy, strong leads. And if we execute well, we should be able to win in both these places. I'm a little bit less familiar with recent polling in Pennsylvania, and we're way ahead in California. And so if people show up and we do the work, we can have the November that we all want to have. I would say that in terms of what happens next in Congress, I want to sort of step ahead all the way to the end of the year and recognize that the reason the government has shut down is because by law on September 30th, the Congress was required to pass a fiscal year budget for 2026, which runs from October 1st to September 30th of next year. That budget was not passed. That budget has not even been introduced. That budget is not even being debated. That budget is not even clear. There's a process to develop a budget. And so the reason the government ran out of money is that the Republicans who were required by law to pass a budget on September 30th have failed to do that. They don't even have a budget for us to negotiate over. And they need 7 Democratic votes to pass whatever the final budget is. And I just want people to realize that where I think the debate is going to head now, which is that at some point they're going to have to produce a budget.
Right.
And that budget is going to have in it not only all the stuff from the big ugly bill, the healthcare cuts and the electricity cost increases and the significantly plussing up of ICE and creating a domestic police force, but it's going to have the tariffs in it, which they've not voted on. And the tariffs are going to be in this final budget. And it's also going to have him selling out the country, to Russia and to ending the Ukraine funding and a whole host of other horrors.
Right.
And so these Republicans, they only passed the big ugly bill with 50 votes, right? They lost 3 Republicans. I don't even know if there's a majority among Republicans to pass the budget as it is now, because it's going to be so unpopular. It's going to be the most destructive piece of legislation in our history. And so they're in an incredibly dark place. They have no easy way out of this because they have there's 2 paths for them now, right? One is they course correct make huge concessions to us on the tariffs, on healthcare, on ICE, and other things that we're going to demand in the final budget negotiations, basically acknowledging that they fucked up and that Trump is a bad president and did terrible things to the country, right? Which I don't think he's going to allow, right? Or the other thing is they have to then vote on the most destructive and unpopular piece of legislation in American history, own it, and then run on it next year. And I will tell you, there are dozens of Republicans in the House and the Senate that don't want to do that, and who are in vulnerable races. And so they've created a huge mess for themselves because Donald Trump is the worst president in our history. He's done enormous harm to the country. And now what's happening is the consequences of these actions are coming, they're coming home, they're coming due. And they don't have any way to extricate themselves out from underneath the harms they've done. I think there was this arrogance and a belief that they could bullshit their way through television ads and control the media through this. And remember, Trump has plummeted to the lowest approval rating of any president in history, lower than we're at this point in their presidency. And I'll wrap up here, Catherine, lower than Joe Biden was after the debate, even with all of their information superiority that they have. And so we should be heartened that the first step in us getting to the other side of Trumpism has already taken place, which is that he is seen as a failure and a fuck up and a bad guy by a majority of the country, an overwhelming majority of the country. Now it's up to us, as you pointed out, to do the next step, which is to win these elections, to have a great showing tomorrow with no kings, and to go out and keep kicking their ass.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think one thing that, and I know I'm glad that Fennell's here because she has a question to ask you. And I'll wrap up on the other side of that. I think what gives me really what Trump's poor ratings, but what we see is finally people are stepping up. You know, in the Pentagon, the reporters all walked out. They're not signing this, lack of freedom of speech for themselves and all that. We see business and corporations. And for us, the boycott has been really, we got to keep that kind of pressure where we know what the Kimmel thing was a lot to do with our pocketbook. And this is when people pay attention. So I want to make sure I give Fennell her second to say
Fennell,
hi.
how are you?
I had a chance in the pre-chat to talk to Simon, so I won't ask him that question again. But I know it was a great question too. But what I would just say is, Simon, what you just said is really powerful, and I think part of it is this idea about how do we keep on pushing out this information about the ridiculousness of what's actually happening. And I think many of us think that there's an opportunity perhaps for us to figure out how to have bigger microphones, even on ourselves, to be able to let friends and families know that if people continue, I mean, I see that success is when people tear off those bumper stickers, take down those flags because they're so embarrassed to be part of the buffoonery that's happening. I mean, how do you see it when the public starts to really take note of what's happening?
I think people have taken more note of this than we all kind of understand. And even just let's just put polling in the last 2 weeks that Trump is at between 38 and 42% in these polls. And let's say he's at, the average is 42%. That means almost 20% of the people that voted for him believe that he's doing a bad job and disapprove of what he's doing. And so this whole idea of, well, will the Trump people ever really turn on him? They already have. And there's been, and on the economy, on inflation, on almost every issue that matters to voters, he's in the 20s and 30s. He's not in the 40s and 50s. So it means that, 65% of the country is disappointed with him on healthcare, on inflation, on jobs in the economy, and many of these issues. And I think that that's why I describe it as there's a distance. He's become distant to people. He's become, unimportant to them. They've sort of 55% of the country, I think, are unavailable to Republicans right now in polling. And so we should be encouraged that we, imagine it, by the way, if he was popular now, right? Just imagine the counterfactual, right? That 55% of the country was supporting him. So we should realize that something really significant has happened. It's necessary but insufficient, right? For us to go do what we need to do, because we have to go win these elections. We have to be, we have to continue. I think part of, to be very specific about your question, part of what's happening is that more and more people are going to be receptive to the arguments we're making, right? They're going to be more open to believing that maybe this guy wasn't what they thought he was going to be, that, his prices are rising, he's taking away our health care. Because the truth is, if we can sum up, the way I talk about this at Hopium, his agenda literally is more for me and less for all of you. It is literally let them eat cake in the modern days. And And so he is now for 200 oligarchs, and he's letting it, and he's fuck all to
Fucking all of
everybody
them.
else. Yeah. And like the
Let-
rest of you guys fuck
Can I break
off,
in
right?
here though?
Yeah.
Because I think so I want to say, because I know we want to get to
We got to go. You've got amazing
but I
guests. So
want to
let me,
say, and I'll
let me
leave
end.
this to you and to think about in the room to think about. All that said, that's why they're doing the gerrymandering in Texas.
Yes.
Stealing, they're doing the civil rights thing. So what they know is they're so unpopular, they have to steal, cheat, and that's how they're planned to win. And we have to know that. That's why Gavin Newsom is doing the California thing. The way we win is we go in there and we fight for every damn vote, push every power lever we can to make sure, like even in Virginia, Youngkin purged our votes, right? Luisa said, we got to pay attention. That's my little takeaway from this. And I'll leave you with that.
Can I just, and my last point on this is that, yes, the response that they have had, instead of
Yeah.
course correcting and trying to regain the support of the American people around their agenda, is they're going to try to crush us. And that's the decision they've made, right?
Maybe.
And so what is our response to that? No kings, millions of people on the
kings.
street,
We're
win
plugging
these
in.
elections in November, and let's go kick their
All
ass,
right,
everybody.
let's
Thank
go
you.
kick their ass,
Thank you,
Simon.
Simon. So happy to
Thank
see
you.
Everybody, and we'll talk. And Simon was so great at the Women's Summit to join us and be so generous with his time. We really appreciate it. And Simon, I still have the book for you, that for the joy of talking to voters. For now, I'm going to kick it over to you to get things started.
Thank you, Catherine. I am so excited that I'm going to be talking to Michael O'Connor. He's an award-winning journalist at the Dogwood News. And so he's a lead reporter for a newly launched Virginia Capital. And we're going to talk about that because what I love about it, it makes everything common sense for everyday people to understand exactly how policies are affecting us. So Michael, welcome. I'm so happy you're here.
Yeah, thank you for that kind introduction. It's great to be here.
So you write about a lot of things. Now, the last thing you wrote about, we're going to just spend a little time on this because I thought it was important, was the debate last night. So I know people are anxious to hear what your thoughts were about the debate between Jay Jones and Attorney General Miyares.
Yeah, the big question going into that debate was how, Jay Jones would handle the inevitable question about the texting scandal. And I thought he handled it as best he could. He owned it. He apologized for it. He said he was ashamed. He was embarrassed. And then he said, but, he had a good line, I thought, where he was like, Miyares wants to make this campaign about my mistakes, but this election is about the issues that are going to be impacting the Commonwealth. And so he tried to talk more about the issues. And so, probably the most notable thing about the debate, other than that, was just how civil it was. I don't know if you noticed that too, but just especially compared to the gubernatorial debate, there was, they shook hands at the beginning. They wished each other good luck. The moderator offered them water breaks during the debate, and then they shook hands at the end, and they didn't interrupt each other. So I thought the winner last night was just civil discourse.
Yeah, I think so too. We can probably debate another time about the performance. I think Jay did a really great job. I think Miyares bringing up the text messages so many times may have called for another opportunity to sort of, clear the water about that from Jay's perspective, but we'll debate that forever. Here's what I want to talk about though. Everybody knows that my favorite book of all time is The Color of Abolition, and Linda Hersham, who wrote about what she thought would need to happen in the situation that we're in right now. And one of those things was ideas and publishing them matter and making justice visible to the public. And I say those two things because I think that's what your writing does, is that you have ideas about how things are happening and then you make sure that people see the injustices. So I'd like for you to talk a little bit about thinking about those two things, how you think about your writing and what you think the most important things you've written now that we should know about.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate that. And I thought, that's a really beautiful and important way to think about this work. It's a privilege to be able to have this kind of job where I get to talk to people, they share their stories with me, sometimes very intimate stories, and they trust me to tell those stories to other people. The most important things that, I'm writing about are when I'm connecting with, people here in Virginia, and they're talking to me about the impacts of inequality, the impacts of obviously Trump administration cuts. Right now I'm trying to connect with more home care workers, the people that go into people's homes, and for people who are disabled and they can't take care of themselves, and they take care of them. home care workers, there's a lot of turnover because they aren't paid enough. The Trump administration is trying to take away more of their rights. And so that's a story I'm trying to work with a local union on to connect with more people on. But it's just the human stories. I think I love nothing more than just to sit down and talk with someone and hear more about their day, their time. And what's frustrating sometimes is I had an exchange with a guy who was fired. He was doged from DHS,
Hmm.
and we were connecting over social media, and I wanted him to talk to me on the record, and I'm trying to do a story, and he thought his story wasn't interesting. He just thought he would sound like he was complaining, and I was like, no, like we your humanity is important, and like so I just if to anybody out there, if you ever meet a reporter that you trust, like please feel free to share your story because it matters.
Yeah, I think you're gonna enjoy listening to Lynlee Thorne and how she'll talk about bringing these stories to life. And I can't wait for you to hear that. It's going to be very, very interesting and exciting. One of the other things that I think is really important is sometimes we assume that people understand how things are going to affect them. And one of the things that you wrote about is, and I think when you bring stuff to light, one of the Virginia Republicans who is actually going to really benefit from the big tax cuts that are going to happen, the bill, and he helped pass that bill. It's important for people to know who's doing them harm and what is going to stop them from actually voting from people who who are harming them. How do you write about that? How do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean that's definitely a goal of ours here at Dogwood. When we're writing these stories, when we're trying to decide what we write about, it's trying to connect the dots between like your daily life and these distant, abstract ideas of power. And so definitely highlighting, corruption and inequality is a goal of ours. Whenever we can. The story that you're referring to is how we have a congressman in Virginia named Rob Whitman. He represents the first district, which is in the eastern part of the state. It's a competitive seat, in next year in the midterms. He's been in Congress since 2007, but Democrats are targeting to flip it. And like every other Republican, in the House, he supported Trump's huge tax and spending bill that was a massive transfer of wealth, to the rich from poor folks and working class people. He voted for the bill, and the tax changes in that bill, according to an analysis by a nonprofit here in Washington, would result in tens of thousands of dollars worth of tax cuts for Rob Whitman. And so, I don't think he necessarily voted for the bill just because he got that tax cut, but it just goes to show the way you know this stuff is kind of just like built into our system without people really talking as much about it. He's making a big show of with not getting his pay during the shutdown, but he's still worth like millions and millions of dollars. So just trying to highlight the stories whenever we can, and it's not always easy just because of limited resources, but it's always the goal for sure.
Yeah, I think it's what I think is really important is for people who are on this call, all 170 of us, and everybody who are our friends and family who are talking about these issues, to be sure that we are investing in this kind of news that helps us be more effective, to take the facts that you deliver and then help put them into stories that we can all talk about. Because what I want to know is, like when you are writing this, and like you're writing in a district that will say this is a red district, and it's as if I know there are Democrats there, but it's as if that folks who vote for him, they're not all wealthy. In fact, they are people who need their paychecks, but yet they're going to vote for someone who is going to take away and make their lives harder. What have you found out about that? And how do you wrap your mind around people who continue to vote for these folks? Did you find that there's something else?
I mean, that's a great question. And honestly, I'm reminded of a conversation I had with a candidate for delegate here in Virginia, um, who is running in a very red district as a Democrat.
Mhm.
And I asked her, like, you have to win over Trump voters. Like, how are you doing that? How are you handling those conversations? And she was super, super thoughtful about it. And she's like, look, it kind of goes back to the humanity thing. You can't like lead with all these kind of like loaded talking points, these buzzwords that like sort of like make people's brains turn off a little bit. Like if you talk about it that way, then I know you think this way. She just tries to connect with them, on their issues. And I think when I'm in the field and I'm talking to people, it's the same thing. It's just like saying like, oh, like, it's like your house burnt down or, your car broke down. Like, what was that like, and then, what's your family like? What do you do for a living? Where do you go? Where'd you go to school? Where'd you grow up? And then eventually you kind of get to these, more like political conversations. But, yeah, I think it's just especially in this age where like our information environment is just so charged, right? Like it's just you just have to try to connect on that human level, even when it's like really hard because the stakes are so high and we're all trying to figure out how to make change. But I think to a point that Simon made earlier, it's that like it doesn't happen overnight and like it's just this ongoing process that we're all working through, and that it's just like a way of life in a way.
Yeah, that's really fantastic. I don't know if you're going to be able to stay for the after chat or not, but I have so many more questions, and I have to tell you, when I was preparing for our conversation, I realized how much stuff I've missed and how much great information that was right at my fingertips that I didn't get to. I mean, it's just pretty fantastic. And I just want to encourage everybody, if you're not signed up to receive this newsletter, you are missing out on some fantastic information that you can be sharing every single day with the audience that you own. Thank you so much, Michael. Catherine, did you want to say something?
I just want to say, well, Michael just flew away, but I want to say thank you, Michael. Great to see him in the room. And I'm going to say, what I want to say is we've been partnering with Dogwood. It's amazing to have the partnership. We did an event with them not too long ago with different delegates on the issues. And I'm going to say that when we look at the issues, I went to we're partnering with Clean Virginia. They're doing some really great tours, and I don't know if Michael's been covering those, but wow, they talked about data centers the other day, and I learned so much at one of these damn bills too high stuff when we went to Manassas. I could tell you it was cool. So follow Dogwood, the news on the ground, the economic news. That I think they're doing a great job. So appreciate
Yeah,
that.
yeah, Catherine, I was just going to say, when I was going through all of the information, I mean, it's like really down to the nuts and bolts of what's happening. And I think any candidate who wants to be really serious additionally about this race, this is where you go for some good information that is solid, researched, and well done. So,
Well, speaking of research, well done, and just amazing human being,
mhm.
I want to invite up Lynlee Thorne, the political director of Rural Ground Game, and leave you guys to the next interview. I also want to just make sure that we always say thank you to the wonderful team up there, Laura Mack, Lori Eckers in the room too, Belle Martinez, Dennis Orsinger, Esther Calhoun, and Robin even came in the back room, and Heidi Dragneff. Always good to say thank you every week. It's so much fun, Lynlee. We get in that back room, and we couldn't do without the folks that are on the team. So thank you, everybody, and I'm looking forward to learning all about what we're going to do to win.
Yes. So thank you, Catherine. Lynlee, I am always so excited to get a chance to talk to you. And so we have a lot of work to do. So I'm going to let you sort of take over. Michael just he couldn't have set it up any more perfect in terms of how we think about the work we want to do. So you go.
Yeah, what Michael said, I kind of want to repeat to highlight, because in my work, I found the same theme, going to people that I know in my life who, for some reason, don't believe that their personal story has a lot of meaning. And I'm trying to assure folks that it absolutely does. And I want to share a story about a gentleman who lives very close to me. I was dropping my kids off at school pretty recently, and this is a tiny little town in MAGA country, a deep, dark red little rural town. And I see a gentleman with a big bushy white beard standing on the sidewalk all by himself. And he's holding a sign, and I'm thinking, all right. And I did a double take because his sign said, "Save the Constitution, Veterans Against Trump." Standing there all alone again in like pretty hostile territory. And I was incredibly moved and kind of stunned by this in the best possible way. Came back a few days later, and to see that he's standing there with another gentleman side by side, another veteran. And I went out and stood with them for about 20 minutes. So Willie, George, and now an increasing number of folks in the community have been standing on this curb week after week to just show themselves to the community. They're getting tremendous support from bus drivers, from school teachers. Willie is a janitor at my child's middle school. And what I know is that teachers in the school and other school staff are saying, hey, what's he doing there? What's that all about? Why are veterans against Trump? And some of these kids who have never heard a different perspective are starting to question and think about these issues a little differently than maybe what they typically hear at home. We have a quick video about
Before you go
Willie.
there,
Oh, yeah.
before you go there, there's one thing that I think people should know. And we talked about that Willie just didn't decide to do this one day. And you talked about how he thought about it. Tell us about that.
Yeah, as I've gotten to know Willie, and now we are texting buddies and we talk on the phone. He likes his coffee black, and sometimes people can't maybe stop and stand with him, but they'll make sure he gets his coffee. But he was talking to me before he decided to stand out there on his own, and said he got to a place where he couldn't sleep. He wasn't able to eat. And he just made a decision that he needed the community to know that there was another perspective. He took a solemn oath to this country that he holds dear to his heart. You'll see more about that in the video. And he means to stand by that. And he, you know, as the school buses are going by and kids are waving, most of the time with all 5 fingers, not always, but he's saying, I'm here for you. I'm standing out here for you because I know what's at stake in this country. And so I think as we're all thinking about putting our feet on the ground and being out there on Saturday, if we have the privilege to show ourselves, and recognizing that some of our neighbors do not. Some of our neighbors are already in hiding in this country because of the reality of what's happening on the ground. And some of us with our privilege need to be out there as much as we can. And if you're feeling uneasy or uncomfortable, I hope that Willie's story can give you a little inspiration and hope to get out there and do something. If Willie can do it on his own in deep, dark MAGA country, the rest of us can do it everywhere else.
Great. Dennis, the video.
Veteran that gave some. I have friends who have gave all. I love this country. I gave an oath in 1979 I hold dear to my heart. I hold that oath today. I will still die for this nation. I am calling all veterans to remember your oath. It's not a free nation when you have someone saying they're going to put military in the streets against people. I depend on my Medicare and my Social Security as a way to provide for my family, and it's all being attacked. Wake up, America.
Our freedoms and future are on the line. Stand with your neighbors. Vote for Democrats. GroundGame is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Okay, I'm telling you, it is just so powerful. And what's so powerful is the way that you set up and tell this story, because I know it's so emotional for you because you hear this all the time, and now everybody else has heard it too. But what I love is that you said everybody can do something. Willie can stand out there where it's not necessarily safe for him. There are things that we can do in the safety of our homes. You said based on your privilege, what you can do. So talk to us a little bit about, in the few minutes that we have, about the kinds of things that we can be doing now.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have a lot of links in the chat. So, and I know Luisa covered a lot of ground, and we would love it for folks to join us this coming Wednesday to reach Democratic voters who haven't voted yet. Outside the battleground, a lot of focus is still going to be on Democrats in the urban crescent. And we really have to reach beyond that. We know that we can't win without rural voters on our side. And so Rural Ground Game has achieved well over 700,000 direct voter contacts so far this year. Ads like the one you just saw about Willie, we are on track to distribute those to about 1.1 million folks. We would like to get to about 2.4 million. So there is a donation button there that is specific to getting more ads like this. And we are covering things like the personal impact. We're talking about Medicaid saving the lives of newborns. We're talking about a gentleman like Bill, who has a personal story that's very close to my own father's story, as he's managing his wife's dementia care. So people are already experiencing the impact of this administration in really profound and personal ways. We're telling those stories, getting them in front of voters as much as we can. And there's going to be lots shared in the follow-up to this call about how people can get involved, whether you're here in Virginia or you need to help us from home.
Yeah. And I want to say that there's the phone banks we're really pushing so we can come in as a group. Are really impactful. Our next Wednesday, October 22nd, everybody in this room show up between 6 and 8. Network Nova will be running one room. We're going to have James Walkinshaw with us kicking it off. He just won in Congress. It'd be a lot of fun to have him. And then Swing Blue Alliance, there's another. We're just going to be sharing the same dialer with the same capacity of people. Let's make sure these next 18 or so days count. Just get on the phones and use your feet, use your dialer, use everything, doors, phones, and all. So thank you, Lynlee, and we'll put stuff in the chat. And speaking of pumping people up, let's get pumped up with some We of Action. That was fun. I'm getting excited, Fennell, because yes, the Queen is here. Hail the Queen.
Queen Bee.
Queen Bee, Micaela Bond. I'm welcome. Founder, We Have Action, We Have Fucking Action. Just to say the F word today. We're okay, teacher. They're not going to wash my mouth out. All right.
You get an A+ actually from this teacher.
Yeah, that's good. So I want to say first, I went to the meeting on your planning meeting Monday, and I hadn't been to the secret hideout where we used to plan for since 2017 in a while. I was stunned when I walked in to see it packed to the rafters in that church, and I needed it. I needed to be in your space. I thank you for that. You were amazing how you just had everything organized about the day, really thought of everything. So let's talk about No Kings, what WOF is doing, of course, but just more also just about what we're trying to pull off on Saturday.
Well, I am just so excited. I can't believe it's like No King's Eve. It feels almost like Christmas. This was a serious talk we just had, right? And I'm just sitting there just going, oh my gosh, there's so much to do. But WOFA really decided, and it was brilliant because it was before Mike Johnson called this the hate rally. We are all about Virginia is for lovers. And we wanted to, yes, it's No Kings, but our theme is Virginia is for lovers of our democracy, of our Constitution. And so this theme is just taken off, and it's going to be so much fun. And we're just going to have a big love parade down on the mall tomorrow. And we hope you all will join us. And we are going to celebrate all that we have done as a grassroots organization since 2016. We're still doing the work, Catherine. We don't quit.
I want to say that what got me was the Care Bears. I wanted to be a Care Bear, and I was like, we need to dress up like Care Bears. But you really had thought it out. You have these people called Care Bears that really care for people. And then also the kind of flags that you ordered, the idea. Tell us about the assembly of that parade, the pre-parade that you have going on downtown DC.
So our event, we did Hands Across Arlington, which 3,000 people signed up. We had 6,000 people show up. So we already have 3,000 people signed up tomorrow. We think we're going to have 8,000 people. So that 3.5% people, we're getting there. It's happening, and come join us for that alone. But our idea is we're just going to have people show up. The Care Bears will be there. We'll be in yellow. We're going to have all kinds of costumes, Inflatable Nation in solidarity with our friends in Portland. So the crazier and the more creative, the better. We have 180 flags. We are taking our flag back, people. We have them on poles and banners. We're going to have the U.S. flags, Virginia flags, all 50 states and territories, Black Lives Matter flags, LGBTQ flags, whatever. The flags are going to be there. And we were going to be singing. Yes. So this teacher will be helping to lead, and apologies for the voice, but we have 10 songs. We're passing out song sheets to everybody. We're going to sing patriotic songs as we march to the rally in front of the National Archives. We're going to stage an incredible photo with all of those flags singing "This Land Is Your Land" at the top of our lungs. Yes. And then we are going to be joyful and join the rally that starts from 12 to 3. Yes. So if you want to be a part of that, please join us. Please message me. We need you all. If you're on this call, you're worker bees. We need you to join our Care Bear crew and show up at 10 a.m. so we can put you to work.
I also want to be a Care Bear. And we're highlighting, of course, you also are covering 7 bridge brigades in the morning. So a lot of the leaders, Bridget Kraft, I know, is doing one, and she's a leader. We have bridges covered all over. Shenandoah is in the room. We know that people are doing things across the whole Virginia, which is awesome. So find your spot. And we always tell people, go with a friend, bring new friends, and stay in that community. And I think it's going to be exciting. And can you put your song PDF in there? I think maybe Robin already did, or Stare, somebody did, but we'd love to have people just in general. What a great song list. So thank you for coming here.
Well,
and
we'll do that. I encourage everyone
ahead, please.
today. Everyone today, please change your profile picture to No Kings.
Okay,
everybody.
3.5%, everybody. Let's
Yes.
fight back. Thank you. And thank you again. I tell you what, the pleasure of being in this movement, if there could be, is knowing you and other leaders, everybody in this room. And I was telling somebody the other day, it was Lynlee. I'm like, the thing that sustains me is the relationship and friendships. Couldn't do without that, because we've been needing to lean on each other. It's not easy having this kind of, stuff. So 3.5.
3.5.
Let's do it.
Hey, good luck. We'll see you. Thank you.
you.
Bye-bye. And this is for you. Hold on one second. I was gonna see if I could play this. Hold on.
'Cause I love the adrenaline in my veins. I do whatever it takes. 'Cause I love our meals when I break.
I love that, because that's what we have to do. Whatever it takes. That's where we are.
We are aware that was for you special. That was a special little whatever it takes. So what we have to do today is wrap up. I'm going to give you the first word.
So I think my first word is 2 words. Show up.
Show up. That's a good one. That's easy, as we say. Well, I agree with that wholeheartedly. And before we wrap up, I want to thank everybody in the room. Thank the patrons. Please, if you like what you're seeing, we want to continue. That means give your support to the people, the women doing the work, the grassroots, and we really appreciate it. And lastly, next week, we have October 24th, we're going to have a Gen Z special show, and Michelle and Macy may be in the room. I wasn't able to look at everybody, but I'm excited to see some of that action. We'll be doing some debriefing going on, so that will be a lot of fun. I want to thank Simon Rosenberg from Hopium Chronicles, Michael O'Connor, Dogwood. I hope he can stick around a little bit with us. Of course, Lynlee, Thorne, phone banks people. We need the next couple weeks. Let's focus after Saturday, all about winning to protect our state. And then Micaela Pond, We Have Action, just a great, energetic, lovely, retired teacher. I just love her. And lastly, what's my lastly? And I made a special video, special for this room and you in general, because Diane Keaton had passed away this week. So we're going to roll out with a little bit of Diane Keaton to get ourselves going and roll to the other side. So I hope everybody joins us. Thank you to the team. Woo-hoo, let's go. Let's go. Wrap up. Let's play it. Hope I remembered everything. I think so.
You did. You got everything.